I don't think at any point in Harry Kane's career he's had a realistic chance at winning a trophy. And by realistic chance, I mean being an overwhelming favourite in a final or in a tournament, and then subsequently choking or bottling that opportunity to win a trophy. This is concerning. The way Klopp has been acting in the media is concerning, and it reminds me a lot about Jose Mourinho. Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of the 2 Foot Tackle podcast. I'm your host, Ari Stamatakos. We're back again for another week. We are back again speaking on most of the footballing actions over the last 7 days. It's been I don't know how to really describe it. I've got my running sheet here and I don't think there's a lot to speak about, but it feels like there was a lot to speak about, but I've only just deciphered through and I've only got a couple of talking points, so maybe this will be a shorter episode than usual. I say that. I said last week's maybe a bit shorter, and it was still ticked over the 60-minute mark, I'm pretty sure. So, this could go around about an hour, maybe a little bit longer, maybe a little bit less. Only a couple of talking points, some heavy A-League discussion as well. I'm almost certain there will be. So if you're unfortunately not here for that, then I apologise. There will be some general discussion as well about Prem, etc., like that. But I'm surprised there was not that many talking points. I've got it here and there's not many. But anyway, we move. We can only move forwards. Hope everyone's well. Hope everyone has enjoyed their week, their 7 days since we last spoke. Although if you follow the TikTok and the Instagram, there was plenty more content, just clips of the podcast. So if you can just, you didn't escape me if you follow the pod on those two platforms. And if you don't, why aren't you? 2 Foot Tackle podcast on TikTok and Instagram. Twitter as well, and then of course YouTube YouTube subscribe, notification bell like, and all the audio platforms as well. Get the plug out of the way nice and early. I know no one's here for that, so get the plug out of the way nice and early. Hope everyone's well. The main thing. Hope everyone's well. Hope your team's won as always. And let's just crack in. Enough with the waffle. Normally I ramble about 6 minutes or 5 minutes at the start of every episode, just to ease into things. But let's try crack onto it. Let's try and make this a little bit shorter. Let's try and make this a slightly shorter episode. Let's try and aim it for about 50 minutes. I don't know. Don't quote me on that, but it may be that. Actually, before I start, as you can probably tell if you're watching on YouTube, and hopefully you can tell if you're listening to it, I've just done some things with the mic, and by some things with the mic is that I've turned it sideways and I've put it to my left. Hopefully that stops the spiking and the slightly uneasy audio to listen to. I was listening to it back the other day when I was uploading, and I was like, "Gee, this audio is a bit. It spikes a lot, and it's very sharp." I feel like that's the way to describe it. So hopefully this has kind of allowed it to be a little bit more kind of stretched out in a sense and be more blunt rather than just a sharp noise every time I enunciate a word or enunciate a syllable, put it that way. So hopefully the audio is a little bit more rounded and is a little bit more easier to listen to. It may be a little bit quieter as well, so you probably will need to up the volume on your phone or your laptop or whatever. But that's by the by. Okay, let's crack on. So as I said, not many talking points. I want to speak on Harry Kane, because that was probably the main storyline coming out of the Premier League weekend, as well as the ramifications around that game, the game that kicked off, or didn't kick off, the second game of the weekend. I want to speak very, very, very briefly on Mason Greenwood. We'll touch on that when we get to it. And then there's some A-League / Australian football chat. I want to speak on Harry Souttar's debut. It was very, very just comedic, I think is the way to describe Souttar's debut. And of course the National Second Division has been not announced, but there has been expressions of interest for the National Second Division for the A-League, aiming to kick off almost in 12 months' time, 13 months' time. And I want to speak on Melbourne City, because they're pretty good, aren't they? Who went into footed, we'll touch on a preview as well. And maybe we'll touch on some other results, if I can remember, or some other storylines that have come from this weekend, if I can remember. But let's crack on. So let's start things off with Harry Kane. Now, actually, before we speak on Harry Kane, in terms of what I want to speak to him, what I want to speak about him, and the reason why and the reason why I should say. Let's move on, or let's speak about what actually happened over the weekend in terms of the Prem and the results, because we're starting to get into the period now where we almost need to do like a weekly. I wouldn't say title, maybe not weekly title race chat, but definitely a constant title race update. So, we've got 18 games left of the season for Arsenal, 17 games left of the season for Manchester City, and both teams dropped all 3 points over the weekend as well. And while that kind of doesn't really mean anything in terms of the title, because both teams dropped points, both teams had stayed on the same amount of points, so the difference is the same. I think it's advantage Arsenal over the weekend. And I say this for two reasons. Firstly, Arsenal's loss, I think, while it was against a lesser opponent, and while it was a game that Arsenal potentially expected to win, those games kind of almost do like a reverse psychology in a sense, in the way that I look at it. And the reason why I say this is because if a team is going on an unbeaten run like Arsenal have been, I mean, the last time they lost in the league, they only lost once in the league, and that was to United, right? And they've been on an unbelievable run, right? The last time they dropped points to Newcastle in the league, but before then they dropped points to Southampton in October, right? So they've been on an unbelievable run in the league. They were performing really, really well, and when you drop a game like this against Everton, a team like Everton in the situation that they are, of course, new manager coming in, Dyche coming in and revamping the squad, playing a different formation, different system, different tactics, different roles, responsibilities, etc. And of course, the feeling around the squad that Everton have got right now, it is almost, you can almost excuse it to a little bit of it, to an extent, because of the new manager bounce, the ability for Everton to get up for this game. And I feel like when you're in a title race, losing to someone like an Everton, I say Everton, they're just using it as an example, but a team like Everton who are in a relegation scrap, or who are in the lower half of the table, away from home especially, could be better than losing to like a Tottenham, which City lost to. I think it was at home as well, wasn't it? No, it was away. Losing to a side like Tottenham, losing to a side like United or Newcastle or Brighton or whoever, like teams in and around that area, because that shows more fallibility in a sense, because it's a freak result. Like, Arsenal aren't going to lose, like, we're Everton now, right? Everton would probably just be Everton at 18th, right? If Arsenal versus Southampton, Bournemouth, Leeds and West Ham, the two teams either side of Everton, or the four teams either side of Everton, if Arsenal versus any of those four teams, you'd back Arsenal to win 9 out of 10 games against each opponent, right? And that is because losses against those teams are statistical anomalies more often than not. Whereas if you lose against a side that's relatively close to you, that is a potentially bigger indicator of you might not actually be as good as you think you are, or you might not actually be at that level. Whereas Arsenal, we've seen Arsenal beat, obviously Arsenal lost to United, but they beat United. So they lost to United the first time. They beat United. They beat Spurs. They drew to Arsenal. They drew to Newcastle, which a little bit of a poor result there. But they beat Brighton. They beat Chelsea. They beat Liverpool. Right. They beat Spurs twice again. They beat Spurs again. They beat Brentford. So they are beating the sides in and around them. Whereas City have lost 4 times this season. One was to Spurs, United, Brentford, and Liverpool. Sides, maybe barring Liverpool, who are in and around them. And of course they did draw 3-3 to Newcastle as well. So it is quite interesting where the dropping in points comes. To me, despite the results over the weekend, to me it's advantage Arsenal. And to me it is a period of the season where if City don't catch up, I can see Arsenal running away with it now, because the way that Mikel Arteta will have this side drilled to have unbelievable standards and to not have any more points dropped in the way that they drop points against Everton. To me, City, despite only being 5 points in the league table with a game in hand, to me it's almost like a 10-point gap between City and Arsenal right now. The vibes around either club, the feeling about their future prospects, to me, has Arsenal well and truly in the box seat. And do they bottle it from here? Who knows? to me, I don't think they can bottle it from here. I think it's theirs to like in terms of I don't think they will bottle it from here. I think it's theirs to lose. But if they do lose out on it, it is I don't know. It's tricky to say. It's tricky to say because they've got a game in hand. They have that game in hand, right? And that game in hand, if they lose, I can't remember who it's against. It might be against Liverpool. Just based off the fact that Liverpool only have 20 games played as well. I mean, Leeds do as well. I don't know who it is against, but it depends. If Arsenal lose that game in hand, I could see it being a really. I can see it being a. I can't see it being a bottle, put it that way. If they lose the game in hand, because it's only 5 points against City, right? Despite what I've said about it, thinking that it's more of a 10-point gap than it is a 5-point gap for Arsenal. If you look at it based off the actual numbers, it's a 5-point gap, and that's if City win both of those. If City beat Arsenal twice, they leapfrog them, right? So it's in City's hands. It's in City's hands, despite them being 5 points behind. We obviously pending the game in hand. If Arsenal win that game in hand, extend it to 8 points. And if both teams maintain their level until they verse each other, and that 8 points turns into 11 points, if they drop it from there somehow, it will be a massive bottle. It will be a huge bottle. They verse on Thursday, not this coming Thursday. They verse in 10 days time, which probably gonna have to get up for that. To be honest, probably gonna have to get up for that. To be honest, 6:30 in the morning. I don't know if Chelsea are playing that day as well, but that's going to be a massive game. That's going to be absolutely massive. Yeah, it's going to be a real interesting last half of the season, because is it a bottle? Is it not a bottle? Who really knows? But both sides are both sides are in relatively similar positions in terms of them both being in the box seat, because Arsenal in terms of points are in the box seat, but even if Arsenal win that game in hand and extend it to 8 points, City win both of the games against Arsenal, which you'd expect it to be a very 50-50 game. If City takes 6 points, they drop it down to 2 points, and then it's anyone's game, right? And we've seen City be able to go on extended periods of runs of winning games. I think they won 15 games in a row. When Liverpool and City were battling out for it, they won 15 games in a row. So, I mean, if they do that again, it'll be fucking insane. But secondly, it'll be a massive test on Arsenal, a huge test on them and their bottle and their resolve to get through that. What would definitely be an extremely tough period, because you're going to have a side on your ass every single week, matching your result every single week, if not besting it, depending on. And you have no room to breathe. Because if you drop points, bang, they've caught up by 2. If you drop points again, bang, they've caught up. If you drop points again, bang, they've caught up, and all of a sudden they're 1 point behind or they're equal in points from nowhere, right? Because they're just that unrelenting. I didn't think they'd drop. I did think they'd beat Spurs. I just didn't think it would be. I just didn't think City at this stage of the season could do that to themselves in a way. I thought that United loss kind of not triggered them, but flipped a switch and kind of made it brought it to everyone's attention, or kicked them into gear in a sense. That's probably the phrase I want to use. Kind of kicked them into gear and was like, all right, we've lost United. We're further behind Arsenal now. We need to go. We cannot stop. They went 2-0 down against Spurs. That halftime bulking by Pep, I'm sure, would have given them a little bit of fire, or a little bit of motivation to go out and smash 4 past in the second half. They beat Wolves comfortably. Obviously, the FA Cup is neither here nor there. And then, of course, the result kind of came as a surprise to me. It was an interesting kind of a way. It was an interesting way to see the weekend pan out, and it offers up very dangerous and very. It offers up dangerous and interesting permutations and potential storylines that could come out of the league. And yeah, I can't wait for the last 20 games of the season. Put it that way. Yes, I say 20 games, probably more. It's 18 and 17. I think. Yeah, 20 and 21 they're on. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Who do you think is going to take it out? It's going to be interesting. It's going to be very, very interesting. One of the most, maybe not in terms of points and the drama. Maybe drama aside. Maybe not in terms of points. It may not be the most interesting title race because, I mean, City and Liverpool have battled it out with 1 point separating them both, right? And then having it go down to the final day. I don't think it'll go down to the final day necessarily this time. It could, very well could. I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't, put it that way. But I just think the storylines around it being like Arteta versus Pep, apprentice versus master, this experienced veteran side with their new Norwegian king up front, that jewel in the crown, isn't quite clicking as many people thought it would. And then you go across, you go a few thousand miles, maybe not 1,000. You go a fair way down to probably the next major city in the country, to London, and you have this new vibrant team with two players who they poached from City, who are playing integral roles. Jesus maybe less so now that he's injured, but this young, exciting, vibrant side, full of youth, full of homegrown products, full of bargains, but also risks like Ben White and Ramsdale, who have obviously paid off. Yeah, it's an interesting dynamics. You have a squad which has zero experience to being in this situation, barring maybe Jesus, Zinchenko, and probably Thomas Partey. Everyone else, and maybe other players if I can't remember, but you have a squad largely a squad that's extremely inexperienced in dealing with these scenarios. You have a manager who is extremely inexperienced at dealing with these positions when the onus is on him, both as a player and as a coach. This is Arteta's fourth season maybe, I can't quite remember. And as a player, he got nowhere near winning a title in this regard anyway. So, if in England anyway, I should say, because he might have gone somewhere else. He might have gone close to the Rangers, maybe. Anyway, I don't know, but especially in England, to this magnitude, he probably hasn't. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see whether or not the young prospects, in a sense, that Arsenal are, and the dark horse, in a sense, can upset the apple cart and really take it to City and go all the way. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. I don't know how the fuck I have completely gone off tangent and gone off the rails in terms of what I wanted to say and what I wanted to speak about. What I wanted to speak about was Harry Kane. I don't know how I got to this point, but I think this is a good place to start with Kane. Of course, Kane was the man to score his 200th league 200th goal for Spurs. Is it that, or I don't know. This is horrendous management, as I quickly find out what the actual stat is. So Harry Kane. Regardless, Harry Kane broke the all-time Spurs goal scoring charts, overlapping Jimmy Greaves in obviously being top of that list. He did it with a goal in the 15th minute against City. Of course, we were speaking about that before. Yeah, so it is 200 Premier League goals, the third player to ever do it, joining Wayne Rooney and Alan Shearer. Anyway, off track a little bit. Okay. Kane has secured himself in Spurs folklore and has been a real shining light in what has been a tumultuous decade for Spurs, put it that way. So let's observe this from a couple of different angles. Now, of course, Spurs fans are probably going to be sick and tired of hearing this, rhetoric around Kane and around who he is as a player and other stuff like this. But let's speak about a couple of things. Let's speak about, firstly, his record: 200 Premier League goals, all-time leading goal scorer for Spurs, all-time leading goal scorer for Spurs, joining Shearer and Rooney in the upper echelons of English football and potentially even world football. But so obviously for that accomplishment itself is unbelievable. No one's putting anything, but no one's denying that in the slightest, and I don't think you can deny it. But if Harry Kane's career trajectory kind of goes as it's expected, which is staying at Spurs, probably not winning a major trophy, maybe or maybe not beating Alan Shearer's record, where does that leave him in terms of Premier League greats? Because let's not forget, Shearer won a Premier League title. Like, Shearer has that in his locker. We all know the accomplishments of Rooney. So where does it put him? He's almost a sitting duck where, as a striker and as a footballer, unbelievable, otherworldly at times. But what he has to show for it is nothing. He has nothing to show for it. And it goes on what you value. Do you value trophies and do you value your honours, or do you value an individual record when it comes to the legacy of a footballer? I don't know, to me anyway. To me, of course, let me know in the comments below as well what you think about Kane's kind of career, especially so far. But it's quite bizarre. It's quite bizarre the way his career has panned out, because a lot of people just assumed, yeah, he'd have a couple of good seasons at Spurs and then go to United, go to City, go abroad, and kick on with his career, win loads of trophies, potentially win England the World Cup, and then he'll be on his merry way into retirement as one of the best strikers in the Premier League era, or in the world, right? But that hasn't quite panned out the way it has. Is it a money thing? I don't think it will be. I don't think it was, or it is anyway. Is it a wanting to win a title with his boyhood club? I mean, his boyhood club's Arsenal, but let's keep that on the wraps. I don't know what it is. So it's obviously commendable the fact that he stayed at Spurs for so long. Of course, he did have some loan spells, but in essence, he just stayed at Spurs his whole career, right? His whole professional career, or most of it anyway. And it's commendable. It has to be. You have to commend him for that. You have to commend him for being such loyal to a club which, with all due respect, has been forever the bridesmaid, never the bride. And we've seen that time and time again. They've had countless attempts at winning the league. They were the best team over 2 years and didn't win a Premier. They were the best team over 2 calendar years and didn't win a Premier League trophy. I've never seen that before ever. Like, over the combined 2 years, the season Leicester won it and the following season when Chelsea won it, Spurs were the best team across those 2 calendar years, without a shadow of a doubt. 2015 and 2016, Spurs were the best team over those 2 calendar years without a shadow of a doubt. And they didn't win the Premier League. They haven't won FA Cups. They haven't won a League Cup. They've won the Audi Cup. There you go. And when you look, obviously that goes into what Kane's record, and then Kane's record within international wise, obviously 2018 World Cup or 2016 Euros, shocking. 2018 World Cup, heartbreaking, but still probably a net positive in terms of where they got to. Euros, heartbreaking, but still probably a tick. And then the World Cup again, poor, but probably on par to where they got to, or where they were expected to get to anyway, considering the opponent they lost to, of course. He hasn't really performed at any of those tournaments, barring the 2018 World Cup. He won the Golden Boot at that tournament. You can say how he won it, but he won it. Like, he won the Golden Boot that tournament. So you can't say he didn't do his job, because he did. Did he potentially perform on the biggest stage? Probably not. He was a little bit absent in that semi-final against Croatia. Did most of his work against Panama and these lesser sides in the early stages. But you can't take anything away from him, because he scored goals, right? Some of them were pens, yep. Some of them may have come off his backside, yes, but he scored goals. And you look at that transfers over to, 2016, that was his first real year where he was really expected to do anything, or his first major tournament. I don't think he started most, or he would have started most games. I can't remember how many goals he scored that tournament. I think it may have only been one. But England as a whole, that tournament were a shambles, so you can't really take a whole lot into that. 2021 Euros, or 2020 Euros, okay. I don't think he won the Golden Boot that tournament. I'm not sure if he did. I don't think he did. He came up clutch in the semi-final against Denmark. Let's not forget that he missed the penalty before scoring the rebound. He played okay. Scored the penalty in the penalty shootout in the final. Potentially was a little bit absent in that final, but you can't really pin anything on him. And then in the World Cup, I don't think he scored a goal. So it is swings and roundabouts, right? It is swings and roundabouts. I think you can't call him like a bottler. You can't say that he's bottled his career or anything like that. You can't say that. You can't say that he's bottled his career. I wouldn't say that. I would say that because to me, the word bottle is when you're in pole position and you choke. It's what it is, choking, right? So let's look at his career. Let's look at Kane's career in terms of his team's accomplishments. Both against Leicester, that season with Leicester when they were contending for the league, they weren't favourites. They finished third, right? Arsenal were potentially bigger title contenders than Spurs that season. They finished third at the end of the day. Against Chelsea, never within a shot. Never within a realistic shot anyway. Chelsea ran away with it that season. So those two, okay. 2016 Euros, that was poor, but they didn't choke. Like, they just were shit. There's a difference. 2018 World Cup, definitely not a bottle. Definitely not a bottle, because no one expected them to get to the semis. You can say all you want about, they got an easy run to the semis, but they still got to the semis, which not a lot of people thought they'd do. So you can't say that's a bottle. The Champions League final against Liverpool. Liverpool were the best team that season by a country mile. I think they lost a point. They lost the league by 2 points or whatever it was, or a point. And they won the Champions League final. He was injured that season as well, so you can't really take a whole lot into that. Don't think he bottled that. World Cup, I mean, obviously Spurs really haven't been in contention ever since then for any real major tournament. Of course, I got to that FA Cup final, or that League Cup final, I think it was a couple of seasons ago, under Ryan Mason. But once again, they were versing City, so can't really take a whole lot into that. 2021 Euros, you could say it's a bottle, but they got to the final, they lost on a penalty shootout. If Marcus Rashford's penalty goes this far to the right, or this far inside the post, England probably win that penalty shootout, and Harry Kane's lauded as a hero. And then the 2022 World Cup, I mean, they lost to France. Like, for all I think about France made the final and were once again this close to winning that shootout. You can't say that's a bottle as well, because of who they lost to. If they'd lost to Poland in the semis or in the quarters, then fair enough. There's some blame to be put there, but they didn't. So, taken into context about who they versed and how they lost as well. They dominated. And you can say, he did miss a penalty. He did miss a penalty in that game. But he did also score a penalty in that game. So it kind of cancelled each other out for me. The penalty was poor, yes. Probably, in my opinion, he shouldn't have taken it. With the context of him having already taken one with Hugo Lloris in goal, I don't think he should have taken it. I think I said that actually in the podcast reviewing that game. So when you look at his career, I don't think he's a bottler. I just think he's been a victim of always being the bridesmaid in every single regard. I don't think there's been any. I don't think at any point in Harry Kane's career he's had a realistic chance at winning a trophy. And by realistic chance, I mean being an overwhelming favourite in a final or in a tournament, and then subsequently choking or bottling that opportunity to win a trophy. Every single time he's had an opportunity to win a trophy, he's always been, or his team has always been, the underdogs. And to me, you can't call that a bottler, to me. However, he is a player who has an unbelievable resume when it comes to goals and accolades, individual accolades and records that doesn't show in the trophy cabinet. And to me, that leaves his career and his legacy with something missing. That's, for me, you can't put him up there with Rooney, Shearer, Aguero, Henry, despite Harry Kane being the third top goal scorer in Premier League history, to me. That's potentially harsh, potentially unfair, potentially harsh, potentially unfair. But to me, that's how it falls for me anyway. Because Shearer won a Premier League. If people forget that, right? Because he did do it at Newcastle. If Shearer didn't win a league, you couldn't consider him the best Premier League striker of all time. It'd be Rooney or Aguero or Henry, probably Henry actually. But because he's got that, he has to be the best. Rooney, similar, while his trophy cabinet dwarfs both of them combined, his goal record is just second best. And I think the way that Shearer dominated the game and changed his game for so long, especially after so many injuries, he was one player, got many injuries, age, and then transformed to be a different type of player and was still scoring goals well into his 30s. Whereas Rooney kind of peaked early and died off quite soon after. I think by the time he was 30, he was done, right? Kane potentially has that longevity that Rooney didn't have and that Shearer does. If Kane breaks Shearer's record, which I think he's 62 goals away from doing so, that's 3 good seasons, which Kane definitely has in his locker, injury-free, of course. We may need to revisit this conversation, because if he does leapfrog Shearer's record, who knows what could happen, especially if he goes to a United or if he goes to a City, probably not City because Haaland, or if he goes to, heaven forbid, a Chelsea, where he gets potentially better service on a more consistent basis, and have a club and goes to a club with standards, with all due respect to Spurs, of course, then we may be speaking about a different player in maybe 4 years' time, where he breaks Shearer's record, has a Premier League, has a Champions League, an FA Cup, heaven forbid a World Cup or a Euros as well. We may be talking about the best player, the best striker the Premier League's ever seen. But at the moment, so despite his goal record, you can't put him in that echelon for me. Which I know is harsh, which I am fully aware is extremely harsh and is something that not a lot of Spurs fans potentially would want to hear, but that to me is how it goes for me. You can't call him a bottler for the reasons I mentioned, and he's a player that constantly has been in positions where he could have leapfrogged. He could have gone he could have gone in maybe to 2017. Could have gone in 2017. Could have gone after the 2018 World Cup. Could have gone after the Champions League final. Could have gone to City last year. And no one would really blame him for it. But he's stuck by his boyhood club. He's stuck by his team, and commendable for that. But that also tarnishes his legacy to me. You look at so many players throughout the centuries and throughout the decades who have been one club men, which adds to their legacy but also diminishes it to a slight extent. To me, someone like a Francesco Totti who stayed at Roma his whole career, no loan spells, no MLS when he was 35, no Chinese Super League when he's 40, no Indian Super League when he's 55. Roma, one club his whole career, but he didn't reach the heights that he could have done if he had moved to a Juventus or to a Milan or to an Inter, somewhere like that, right? At Gerrard as well. Granted, he won a Champions League, maybe an FA Cup as well in there, some League Cups as well. But if he had moved to Chelsea in 2005 or 2006, whenever it was, but he's potentially a multiple-time Premier League winner. And while it tarnishes his legacy, him leaving his boyhood club and him being a traitor, in a sense, considering the rivalry that Chelsea and Liverpool have, his trophy cabinet kind of overwrites that. But in the same vein, his lack of extreme success that someone like a Frank Lampard had kind of outweighs the or is kind of compensated by the boyhood club, won the Champions League, stayed at his boyhood club, etc., etc. Yeah, it's quite interesting how it's quite interesting. It's what you value at the end of the day, right? It's what you value. If you value loyalty, if you value storylines more than actual, not materialistic records, but if you value loyalty and storylines and narratives more than actual numbers, you may consider Harry Kane a Premier League legend and one of the best strikers to ever play the game in the Premier League. If you look at numbers and if you look at trophies, it potentially isn't for me. But I guess it's one of those things, right? Which goes back to what you value, and it's how you consume sport. It's how you consume sport. I'm not saying you agree with my opinion. I'm not saying if you disagree with my opinion, stop watching. I'm just pointing out my opinion. Leave your opinions in the comments below. Where does Kane rank? Is he a Premier League legend? Should he have left Spurs when he could have? Would that have tarnished his legacy? Would that have improved his legacy? Has him staying at Spurs tarnished his legacy? Who knows? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below as well. As I take a slight break to clear my throat because I can feel it slightly going. So I'll take some water and take a break, and then we'll move on to some more talking points after this. It'll literally be an instant for you. I'll just pause the recording, take a break, and we'll be back. All right, we're back. Apologies for that. I can just feel the throat going. I don't know why. You know when you get that feeling, that tingling feeling. It doesn't hurt. It's like scratchy. So if my voice just stops halfway through a sentence, then I'm giving you forewarning. All right, let's move on. Let's move on. We're gonna have to do it. I don't really want to do it. I really don't. But it's too big news. It's too big of news to ignore. And I only want to speak on it very briefly. Let's speak on Mason Greenwood. Okay. Now, kind of everyone knows what happened. Mason Greenwood charges have been dropped. Crucially and very importantly, he has not been found not guilty. He's innocent and a free man in the eyes of the courts due to a technicality, not due to there being not due to the case going to court and going through its due processes and the outcome being that he did not commit the crimes that he was charged with, crucially. Right? However, in the eyes of the courts, he's a free man, and in the eyes of the courts, he's a free man, but crucially, he has not been found not guilty. Now, obviously, Manchester United have a choice to make. To me, the choice is the equivalent of saying, would you rather eat this gourmet Wagyu steak or a pile of dog shit? That, to me, is the equivalent of what the choices are. Mason Greenwood is a vile human and should never play professional football, at least for Manchester United ever again, but for me, for anyone ever again. You cannot, I saw this tweet, I think it was by, funny enough, a comedian, but Adam Rowe, great comedian, said the standard of proof for Manchester United is far lower than it is for the courts. For the courts, it is beyond reasonable doubt. For Manchester United, it is, Mason, was that you in the video? Yes, it was. Okay, great. Get the fuck out of the club. That's what it is, right? Was that you in the voice recording? Yes, it was. Okay, great. Thank you for your time. You're a fucking piece of shit. Get away from us, right? And get away from football. And get away from the public eye, especially. You cannot have people with such influence and in a position to be idolized by so many people who have committed those crimes. Allegedly, of course. Although, fucking look at the proof. It's a shame that this hasn't gone to court, because fucking how many times, I mean, it goes on one end of the spectrum to the other, right? How many fucking times do cases like this not get resolved with the due processes for whatever reason? Like, you're letting so many fucking people down. Like, so many people down. When you're not... When these cases aren't going to court and aren't being treated with the severity it seems like. I understand the reason why charges were dropped was because of the withdrawal for key witnesses. Some people, I actually don't know who the key witness is. Some people think, or at least it's been reported, or I don't know, that the victim involved was that key witness. Other people, I don't know who exactly it was, but like, fuck, man, fuck, like, there's two sides of it, right? The football side of it, and the future of Greenwood and the future of Manchester United is sever all ties. Like, surely there is a clause in his contract where it says if you bring the club into disrepute, we can sack you on the spot. Surely. If there isn't, fucking how negligent of United is that, right? But still, like, he's gonna sack you for? He's gonna sue you for unfair dismissal. Probably, actually, but like, taking a fair work, Osman. No, like, yeah, fuck, I don't know. It's just a shit situation for everyone involved. Shit situation for everyone involved. Yeah. Get out, like, just, yeah. He should not be playing professional football again, especially for Manchester United. Yeah. Anyway, that's a shame. Downer. Although, the main thing, and I think maybe something that's been overshadowed by everything, there's a victim involved. Regardless of everything that's happened, there is a victim at the end of all of this. There is a victim's family at the end of all of this. Her friends, her people, her loved ones. Like, they're the fucking people that are. They're the people that should be in the conscious, on the conscious, and who should be given the support, not fucking Greenwood, who. I know Twitter is a fake place full of fake people, but Jesus Christ, and TikTok as well. Fuck me dead. Honestly. Anyway. I wish anyway, we'll love support and wishing well the victim's family, friends, and herself, because I can't imagine this situation. I can only imagine it would be the worst fucking thing on planet Earth. But anyway, what a way to fucking downer it. Mason Greenwood can get fucked. Alright. Let's move on. Let's move on to A-League chat. Yeah, let's brighten up the mood. Let's come back home. Let's brighten up the mood. Well, I don't know what that was. Actually, we're actually going to stay in England because I want to speak on Harry Souttar. How ironic was that debut, huh? Maybe not ironic, but ironic for me. I was out with a few mates that night, and I think it was we saw that Souttar was starting, like, oh fuck, he's starting, and a comment was floated around like, imagine if he scores an own goal in his debut, and we all like laughed it off and kind of dismissed it, thinking no chance it will happen, no chance, it can't happen, right? And then I remember sitting in an Uber, I remember sitting in the front seat of an Uber on the way home, and hearing in the back seat, no fucking way, you're not gonna fucking believe it. And it was Harry Souttar scoring an own goal, which is just the funniest thing. Firstly, it was a bit traumatic, but funny now that I've seen what the actual own goal was. It wasn't like, I mean, you've probably seen it. Leon Bailey just kicked the ball at him. Like, he couldn't really do anything about it. His positioning was fine. It was just extremely unfortunate. Like, it's not like he's headed the ball into his own net, or he's not like he's done a with face from, I mean, his fellow teammate who conceded 2 own goals in 10, whatever it was, in the first half, and both of them were shocking. Yeah. He did fine. Like, it wasn't the worst own goal. It's not the worst own goal you'll see, which is so that makes it a little bit funnier. But apart from that, I thought it was fine. Apart from that, I thought it was actually quite good. Held his own well, copped another goal, which is a little bit unfortunate, but yeah, Leicester got the job done. Kicks off his Premier League career with 3 points. Hopefully he can kick on and progress up the Premier League ladder with Leicester, or maybe moving on to a better club. Who knows? But yeah, good stuff from Souttar, barring the own goal, which is quite funny in hindsight. Alright, let's move on to let's speak on National Second Division. Let's speak on National Second Division, the news that kind of took the A-League, maybe didn't take the A-League by storm, but basically the FA have opened up expressions of interest, I think that's what it is, to clubs to be in this National Second Division starting hopefully March 2023. So 13 months from now. Okay, let's go through what this is, right? So, a couple of key points. They want to make all players and all clubs professional, which is great. Don't know how they're going to do that financially, but you back them in to get it done, which is great. It provides a actual pathway for kids in this country, rather than being like, oh, if you're not good for A-League academies, fuck off overseas. It's good that we can actually give a proper pathway to elite football and professional football. So I think that's really good. They want to have it. So it's 12 to 16 teams and 30 to 36 games. To me, I think they should go with 16 teams and 30 games. I think that's it. Yeah, 16 teams, 30 games. To me, that makes the most sense, because you just play everyone twice, home and away, simple. No, for the integrity of the league, it's good, because you have some, how do you describe it? How do you call it? You've got 30 games. Sorry, mind blank. You've got 30 games plus a final series plus cups plus Australia Cup. So we're finally going to solve this issue of not enough football being played in this country. So to me, 30 games, 16 teams is the ideal for me. The 16 clubs, I was looking through. I think I made a list. At some stage I tweeted it, so bear with. These are just clubs that, off the top of my head, I really didn't do any proper research into it. So some of the clubs. So you got South Melbourne, Melbourne Knights, Heidelberg, Apia, Marconi, Sydney Olympic, Sydney United, Wollongong, Adelaide City, Peninsula Power, Lions FC, and Perth Soccer Club. They're 12, 14 teams. South Knights, Heidelberg, Apia, Marconi, Sydney Olympic, Sydney United, Wollongong, Adelaide, Peninsula Power, Lions, and Perth. So 12 teams, so you probably need to add 4 more. There's been other clubs, so like Gold Coast Knights, potentially Brisbane City, Canberra Olympic as well. So there are a few. There are enough teams, in my opinion, for there to be a 16-team comp. There's probably about 8 to 10, maybe 12 if you're really stretching it. Teams that are almost a lock, and like teams that they're fit for the National League division. You're looking at the likes of South Melbourne, you're looking at the likes of Apia and Marconi and these teams, right? These historic clubs within Australian football, and that have the backing, both in terms of facilities and money, for all we know anyway, etc. So they're the ones that you're looking at. Now, this kind of goes back into what does this mean for the whole A-Leagues. Now, there won't be promotion relegation instantly. I think that's a good thing. I think if you rush it with promotion relegation, implement it straight away, you need to make sure that this league has its time to breathe and to build and to become an actual functioning thing, rather than just, second division, promotion relegation, finals, here we go, everything. Like, give it time to breathe, give it time to just rest in itself and operate properly for a couple of years, maybe 2 years, and then implement promotion relegation. This is a good step. A great step in the right direction. And this will eventually solve the problems that we've got in this country regarding the A-League and the nature of it not being able to hold fans and not being able to attract new people, because what you get with a national second division and eventually promotion relegation is you get stakes. You get actual matches with jeopardy, because unless you're in that 8th to 5th bracket, there really is no jeopardy in any games, because it doesn't matter if you finish first, because every grand final is played in Sydney, so who gives a shit? And if you finish last, who cares? You're just going to be in the same league and you're going to have a new season. It's going to start fresh. Whereas as soon as you implement promotion relegation, there is stakes to every single game now, pretty much, which just adds so much more watchability and so much more interest and opportunities for people to be drawn into games and drawn into clubs and become a part of the culture. I think eventually it should be 16 teams in the second division, potentially extending out to 20, and then 16 teams at a minimum in the first division. To me, just broadly speaking, the A-League eventually should have 16 at a minimum. Let's go with 16 for now. 2 places promotion, bottom 2 go down with a third, bottom 2 go down, third place, bottom 2 go down, third place playoff, like they do in the Bundesliga, or third bottom goes into a playoff like they do in the Bundesliga. And I would keep finals. I would keep finals. Or would I keep finals? I don't know. I think if you get rid of finals, you need to properly market the Champions League, the Asian Champions League. You need to properly make sure that it is that it is a household or a household known thing, that the casual fans know what the Asian Champions League is and they understand it, and they understand the jeopardy behind it, and they understand the importance behind it. If you're going to get rid of finals. If you're going to keep finals, I'd keep the final structure the way it is. Second division, I would have top 2 go up automatically, and then I'd have third to sixth. To playoff, third versus sixth, 2-legged, fourth versus fifth, 2-legged, and then the winners I'll go third versus sixth, 1 leg. How would I do it? Yeah, I just have 3 2-legged ties, so you play 6 games. That's alright, you can play 6 games. That's how I would do it. And then how you decipher who goes into the second division, who knows? Because can you feasibly, this is a great question to ask, and this is a great question to be answered. I wish someone could answer it. Is there a feasible way to have a national football pyramid? I don't think there is, right? And I think it's not feasible to have a national third division. Thinking about it more, I think maybe a while ago on this podcast I may have said it, or I was just thinking about it and didn't say it on the podcast, or said it to someone else. Thinking about it now, I don't think it's feasible to have a national third division. So how you split it up in terms of who goes down from the second division to the third division, I don't know. To me, you've got to have because you got to have representation. Maybe you don't have to have representation throughout the whole country, because that just adds quotas, and that the integrity of the league's finished by that point. But I don't know. Could you have a national third division? Probably not. But how does it work if a team from Victoria goes up, but no team from Victoria goes down? So does that next league have 1 less team, or does the promotion from the fourth division dictate who goes into the third division, or like the fifth division who goes into the fourth division? Who knows, right? I guess that's why I'm doing this podcast, not sitting in the boardroom of the FA, right? But as a whole, second division, tick, massive tick. Get the established clubs back in a professional football pyramid, for God's sake. Because to me, arguably one of the biggest mistakes, this could be a bold call. This is a bold call, and I'm going to say it now without really thinking about it, but one of the biggest mistakes Australian football could ever have done is create new teams when you already have existing clubs with existing fan bases, with existing histories, with existing foundations of being a well-run club to some regard. And this goes back to what I spoke about last week about football fan culture, right? You need... I don't know how to say this without me seeming like I hate the A-League, which I don't, and I support a team in the A-League, right? But what you get when you create new clubs and have them be the only professional clubs is that you remove the establishment, you create a new establishment. And that new establishment needs to be especially when we're in a time where sports is so saturated. You've got sport literally on every single day. Like every single day, there is something on that you can watch, right? When you create a new establishment in this day and age, you need to ensure that it is absolutely perfect. Otherwise, people will go to different markets. People would stop going because they have alternatives now. Back in the 70s and the 80s, in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, people didn't really have alternatives. People didn't really have alternatives other than going to games. And if you didn't go to the games, what else would you do, right? Whereas now, if you don't like something or if something isn't for you, you can switch it off like that. And that is why a new establishment needs to be absolutely perfect in order to keep those fans. What you had with the old NSL teams, I understand the way that some of the clubs run was a disgrace, and some of the ways that they were run were extremely poor, and the league was run extremely poor at times. But what you had with those teams is that you had a pre-built establishment that had people going because they love the club and they found identity with the club. You can say it is you can say it's an ethnic-based thing. Sure, you have South Melbourne, Hellas, you have Melbourne, Croatia, you have Sydney, Croatia, etc., right? But you need people to identify with clubs in order for them to keep going back. What is Melbourne City's identity? Who are they what are they? What are Melbourne Victory? What is it? What club? Who is it for? What do they represent? What are their ideals or ideologies even? What are their rationales within their business practices? Who are they? In England, the clubs are steeped in history. Absolutely steeped in history. From location to reputation to honours to everything. And because you could get away with it in the 40s and the 30s and the 50s, they had that time to flourish and become what they are now. I understand. I understand. If you grew up a kilometre away from South Melbourne but you're Croatian, you're probably not going to go watch South Melbourne. I get that. I get it. That is why the implementation of, I was going to call them neutral clubs, non-ethnic based clubs, or no clubs that have direct ties to a group, religion, ethnicity, race, country, are good in parts. However, I know a lot of people that if South Melbourne were the team that were brought into the A-League instead of Melbourne Victory, would have stuck by South Melbourne and would have kept going to games forever because that is their club. However, I do agree. People who didn't support South Melbourne because they were Greek or whatever supported Melbourne Victory, and they wouldn't have supported South if they were in the A-League because they don't identify with them, but they support Melbourne Victory because they identify with Melbourne Victory because they're from Melbourne. I get that. I 100% get it. That's why I think the blending of both types of clubs is good. Is good for the league. It's going to be good for the league because you're going to see. Hopefully this time in 10 years from now, I'm going to be going to, on a Saturday night at Amy Park, I'm going to be going to a sold out game between Melbourne Victory and South Melbourne. First versus fifth. Something like that, right? That is what I want to go. That is my vision. Like I'm fucking in charge. That is what I see the futuristic. That's what I see the future of the A-League being, in a sense. It's two different clubs with two different unique histories, with two different identities, two different supporter bases, battling it out and having them integrate within each other. I think it'd be great. I think it'd be really cool. I think it'd be really, really cool because you have narratives. The first time South Melbourne versus Melbourne Victory in a competitive game that isn't a cup game, the first competitive league game between Melbourne Victory and South Melbourne, or Melbourne Victory versus Melbourne Knights, or Melbourne Victory versus Heidelberg, or Melbourne City versus South, etc. You know what I mean? Is going to be unreal. It's going to be great. The narratives, the storylines around it is going to be sick because, I mean, Sydney are the most successful club in the league, in the country, right? So Sydney are the most successful club in the country. They've got 4 championships, 4 championships, right? So if I quickly bring up the honours of... by the way, I'm just using South Melbourne as an example because, firstly, I'm Greek. Secondly, my dad went to South Melbourne and I hear about them a lot, right? And they're probably maybe the most famous or well-known non-A-League club in the country. Anyway, you could say, you could say, what am I doing here? Yeah, you can say, oh, they're like Sydney are the most successful club in the country with four premierships. But then the first time they were South, the narrative is, yeah, they may have 4 premierships in the A-League, but we've got 4 championships in the NSL. So you're not the most successful. We are. Or something like that. Narratives like that. You know what I mean? Like narratives like that. Do you know what I mean? Stuff like that where they can kind of play off 2 different histories, 2 different organisations, 2 different leagues, and play off the history and the narratives around that. That is what will spark interest back into the A-League, in my opinion, anyway. Yeah, that is something that I'm very excited to see. Hopefully, it comes sooner rather than later. I understand the fact that they probably do need to. I understand that they do probably need to kind of become an actual thing. That's why I agree promotion relegation shouldn't be implemented straight away. I agree. They should become their own thing and then become promotion relegation and get clubs like South, Apia, Marconi, etc., into the leagues. And then you have all those narratives to play off, all those storylines, all that history, 2 fan bases going against each other. It's going to be great. It's going to be really, really cool eventually. Hopefully sooner rather than later. But anyway, I digress. Let's move on. Let's go to... should I speak about City? I just want to speak on City really quickly because they're fucking unreal, aren't they? Like, it fucking pisses me off. It annoys me how good they are, obviously with my victory, obviously being a victory supporter. They won 6-1 over the weekend at Canter. They're, 5 points clear? No, they're more than that. They're 7 points clear with the game in hand. 6-1 over MacArthur over the weekend, and just fucking... Like, what? Yeah, they're great. Like, they're just so good. Like, I mean, their team is, like, so well balanced, so many young kids, so many experienced heads. Just such a well balanced, well drilled, well structured team. It's annoying. It really is annoying. Yordi Boss at left back. He's going to be Australia's left back for the next decade. He's unbelievable. They've poached Van der Veen and he's been unbelievable this season. Tilio hasn't been the player that he normally has been in the last couple of seasons, but he still is playing good football. Leckie and McLaren are showing everyone why they're extremely underrated. Not underrated, but why they're underappreciated by some people. I still think McLaren's not the best striker in the league. I think he's probably the 3rd best striker this season. But anyway, and then, yeah, just so good. It's annoying. But it's good for the league because they're actually playing good football, and all the people that are like, oh, A-League's long ball, A-League is kick and chase. It's like, it's not. Like, watch City. They do football. City do football, and they do it quite well. Unfortunately, there's a victory supporter. But anyway, let's move on. Let's finish things up with who went into footed. This is the segment on this podcast where we go through a player, coach, organisation, team, club, anything. There's something daft. I say daft all the time. Stupid. Not very nice. Funny. This week, it's Klopp. And I want to speak on Klopp just briefly because I want to wrap this up because I'm a bit tired, as you can probably tell. Liverpool lost 3-0 over the weekend. Quite funny. Although, if you were actually speaking to Jurgen Klopp, Liverpool only lost 2-0 over the weekend. The 3rd goal doesn't count. Who counts the 3rd goal? No one counts the 3rd goal. Like, that doesn't count. Klopp came out and said that Wolves' 3rd goal didn't count because Wolves because that was the first time Wolves crossed the halfway line in that half. He then refused to answer a journalist's question because of fair criticism that he wrote that the journalist wrote about Liverpool. This is concerning. The way Klopp has been acting in the media is concerning and reminds me a lot about Jose Mourinho. Klopp and Mourinho, when they first came to England, were these suave, energetic, charismatic managers that oozed class, that oozed this cockiness, but they could back it up, and this arrogance, this bravado. Whereas, like, yeah, they ooze so much. They had this aura about them. And as what we saw with Mourinho was, as he aged, he became a bit cynical, a bit angry. He became a unlikable manager, and I can see that happening with Klopp now. A couple of years ago, 4, 5, 6 years ago, Klopp was this energetic, exciting, funny manager. Now he's cynical. He's a bit narcissistic. He's got a massive ego, and he's just not doesn't seem like he's a nice person anymore, from the outside anyway, and that is concerning, as it would be for a Liverpool supporter, 100%, because we saw what's happened to Mourinho in his career since he made that transformation. Maybe it's going to be the same for Klopp, who knows, but he needs to fix it ASAP because Liverpool are in a hole, and he needs to be the one to fix it. Let's move on. Let's finish things up with a preview of the week. Any big games? United Leeds, that's going to be a good game. Midweek, West Ham, Chelsea, huge game for there. What? Leeds and United play back-to-back. That is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. That is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. So Leeds and United play back-to-back. They're so stupid. Honestly, they're actually so stupid. But apart from that, Merseyside derby, which will actually be back, speaking before that happens. So there you go. Anyway, we're done. Thank you very much for watching our episode of the 2 Foot Attack podcast. Make sure you do all the socials. All that good stuff would mean the world to me. All the socials, follow, links, everything would mean the world to me. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for sticking around. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Leave your thoughts about just anything you want to say. Leave it in the comments below. I'll be sure to read them. See you guys next time. See you guys next week. Speak soon. Goodbye.